Hello and welcome to the GLHF YouTube channel. I am your host Dave Breens, and today we are doing a big old chat about Hellblade Senua's sacrifice, right?
No, this is Saga.
This is Saga?
Yeah, Sacrifice was the
Shit!
first
Okay, right. This is Senua's Saga. Wait, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. That's a terrible name. That's a terrible naming scheme. That's the game we're talking about today. It's out on Game Pass. Reviews just went up. We have our two reviewers here, Ollie and Rahul, who have both played it, well, to the finish. And is it good? I don't know, because I haven't played it to the finish. I need someone like Ollie to tell me. Ollie.
No. That's it. End of video.
Yeah, we're calling it quits here. We're calling it quits. Okay, Rahul, do you agree?
Well, it's not a great game. It's a pretty good movie. That's essentially what I say in my review, is that if this was playing in a big IMAX screen, I would watch the hell out of it.
Okay, interesting. Let's cut down. Let's get down to it. I'm guessing you both played the original, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, so where how does this evolve on that original concept?
That's a difficult one, you see, because it doesn't. You have a mirror. I think that's it. I think just in terms of like actual gameplay, there's nothing that is new. Like all of the stuff that you do is stuff that you've done already in Hellblade 1. Some of the environmental puzzles are like new, but it's not. I mean, it's kind of just the same stuff from Hellblade 1, but like with a different coat of paint. Yeah, I don't really think you could say anything about it is new apart from, the story, which, yeah. It's
okay. That sounds good. That sounds good. Rahul, how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, very similarly to Oliver. Yeah, it doesn't evolve much from the first game in terms of the moment-to-moment gameplay and what you're doing. Obviously, the presentation is incredible. Like, that's the only next-gen thing about it, is that it looks great, sounds amazing, but uh, but as I said, like, as a video game, as what the player is expected to do, you're not doing anything new, and even the new things you're doing don't have enough depth to like to warrant this much investment, I don't feel. Yeah, so that's the issue with the game, is that the gameplay, there's so little of it that I can't even say it's at odds with the story, because the story takes such a, like, it's focused so much on the story, and even that is, it feels sort of anticlimactic. It feels like a side story in Senua's saga. And it like, I was so confused by the stories, that are they trying to tell something really, they're trying to tell something really intimate with her struggles with the Furies. She has accepted the Furies from the end of the first game, but it never goes beyond that. I felt like they were saying the same message over and over, and we've already seen that message in the first game. So what new thing is there?
Okay. How are you feeling about the story, Ollie?
it's really frustrating, I think. Like I enjoyed the story of the first one in the extent that like it was, a very intimate and very, focused story. And that focus is just completely absent here. Like you start off and, Senua's like, you know, gotten herself intentionally captured on a slaver ship so she can end the slavery of her people. And then like, she meets up with, well, kind of she meets up with one of the slavers and is like, well, he's going to take me to their land so I can kill him. And then they just kind of like abandon that threat. Like it's not really relevant beyond that they're slavers. They have like a couple of shouting matches. That's it. The takes a weird turn to like being about, oh, there's a whole bunch of giants around, so we should probably kill the giants. Just out of nowhere. And then that's like the rest of the game is just like, here's a few giants that you should go kill. And like it I don't know. I don't know what it's trying to say. Like it doesn't have any kind of message there. It's just kill the giants. And then like it tries to do some things where it's like, you know, all of these people are suffering, so we should be kind to them. And then like you're just like hacking away at people left and right throughout the game. And then like it's like, well, the giants were people too, and you know, they only terrorize because, you know, they've been hurt and have these struggles. And then like there's a scene where you're just like, you know, covering one in oil and setting it on fire for seemingly no reason because it's chasing you anyway. So I don't understand the point of that either. And like the few characters that you interact with don't really play into the story at all. One gets introduced like 3/4 of the way through the game, and she's there for like an hour. And they do like they build up this big thing about, oh, she's just like you. She's, you know, she's alone and she's a warrior and she's a leader and all of this stuff. And then she just is not relevant beyond that like tiny little segment. So there's so much in the story that like they start doing something, and then the second they're expected to follow through with it, they're just like, oh, well, let's move on to the next thing. Because it just, there's no conviction there. There's no, you know, there's no sense of wanting to do something.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, really frustrating to actually sit through.
Yeah, I bet. In the first game, which I also did not finish, the Furies were basically they were the, I don't want to say gimmick, but they were the one thing that kind of separated the game apart from like a lot of other games on the market, you know. What does this game do with them which justifies them being there?
I'll say that the only differentiating factor is that Senua has accepted the Furies as not as a curse, but just something to live with. And there are a lot of scenes where the Furies are at conflict with Senua's actions, and there are more characters in this game than the first one. Like the first one was such a isolating experience. So Senua meets a lot of people, and there are some people she wants to trust, but the Furies are like, no, don't trust her. Or the opposite, where she wants to fight someone, but the Furies are always constantly saying, oh wait, maybe that person can help us, or maybe that person will backstab us. So those interactions make for some really cool scenes. Obviously the way they play it with the binaural audio, it really messes with you. There are certain scenes where the Furies, uh, like just as a gameplay, from a gameplay standpoint, the Furies do mess with the player really well. But that's about it. You just notice, oh, that was cool, and then they move on. There's no depth beyond that. That's the issue with that whole concept of having those voices in your head. And in the first game, the voices in her head, like there was a real struggle there between Senua and those Furies. That's not present here at all. Really, there's no moment in the story where like Senua does something so contradictory to what the Furies are telling her. Like there's some real internal struggle in there. There's nothing like that here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think with that as well is that like, as you said, like the Furies, like they're just kind of chattering it away, and like because Senua has like sort of grown as a person due to the events of the end of the last game, like they don't really impact her decision making at all. So she's just kind of doing her own thing while the Furies are like chatting away, and like, you know, what's the point of them then? And then like there's also a narrator that like talks throughout the game as well, and like there's another voice of her father who is like telling her stuff as well, and it's like they try to do, I don't know, the voice lines of the father are a lot more like what the Furies were in the first game, but it's still just, it doesn't really land. I mean, they're just kind of present. They're just, it's just extra characters that are like chattering along, just like in any other video game where you have, you know, party members
Yeah.
and stuff, and they're talking all the time.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say that in the first game, as you said, it's quite an isolating experience, and it felt like the Furies were like the only other characters in it. And I was pretty surprised when there was actually a character that Senua was speaking to in the flesh in this one. Does that make a nice change to have actual people in it? Like, how is the small changes being made to Hellblade 2 actually improving over the original?
I mean, having those other people there is like, it's nice just because we already know like what Senua and her furies are about, right? So like having just literally any other voice in the conversation is a nice change of pace.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, the characters aren't really addressed all that much. You spend most of the game without them present, or even when they are present, you're just like not really kind of paying attention because you've been walking for 45 minutes and nothing has happened. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like they do try to like delve into like the personal stories of those other people that you interact with, but it's like a very shallow kind of dive into who those people are.
yeah, those characters you meet is three characters primarily that you meet in the game, which is Fargrimr, Thorgester, and Astrider, and all of them have very different backgrounds. All of them are at conflict with each other in their past, but like the whole point is, okay, can these people set aside their differences and help Senua like get rid of the giants and get rid of all the corruption in the land? But I feel like a lot of that conflict erasure happens like not off screen, but it feels like it happens off screen. Characters suddenly switch from like Thorgester and Astrider, who are from different clans. They have a lot of history behind them. Like the Thorgester's clan has been terrorizing Astrider's clan and whatnot. But obviously, in the game, there comes a point where they all sort of band together. But it feels so fast for Thorgester to like get rid of his clan's ideologies and everything that there's just not enough done with those three characters and the interplay between them. It feels like it is because on paper, if you write a 5 point outline, it'll feel like, yeah, like you meet a character doing certain thing, by the end they have changed, but that evolution is not shown properly, is not the focus.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did someone mention a mirror?
Yeah,
What's
there's
up
a
with that?
mirror, a gameplay mirror. So
Gameplay
basically,
mirror.
combat is kind of just like boring, and it
Mhm.
was kind of boring in the first game, but it's kind of more boring now, because like you're fighting the same enemies over and over and over again. Like there's like five guys. There's like a dude with a sword, a dude with an axe, a dude that can spit fire at you,
And are
a
they all
spear
bold?
guy, and a guy with a club, and like
Are
that's it.
they?
What's that?
Are they all bold?
Some of them wear helmets, so it's hard to tell. But I think
Did,
otherwise they may be.
okay,
um,
all right.
but yeah, so you've just got these five guys, and like it. You just when you get into a combat encounter, there's like 12 of them. You just like fight them one after another, and you spend most of that time just like dodging their attacks and then getting pot shots in, and then you have like this little mirror that like fills up with energy as you fight, and then when it's full, you can just like hit the trigger, and then you basically just get free hits on the enemy, which
Okay.
I've found in most cases is enough to finish them off. So it's basically just dodge until that gets filled up, and then you can kill them.
So when it's like a 12-on-1 situation, do they come one by one, or
Yeah,
is it
it's
like
one by one. There are a few moments where like it like kind of it does a sort of scripted choreography kind of thing where like you have a whole bunch of enemies, and like some of them like come at you, and then that person gets like knocked back and another character starts fighting them, and then other
Uh-huh.
enemies come at you,
Sure.
which is like kind of cool as a spectacle, but it's like this is like a John Wick action scene and not not something from a video game. Like mechanically, it doesn't really change things for you because like all you're doing is dodging and then hitting
Mhm.
back anyway.
Mhm.
So yeah, it like even if they change the characters like mid combat, like it doesn't. I don't know. It kind of feels like the old Assassin's Creed games how like they were just like standing around in the circle, and then one guy would come at you, and you would just like parry until you could get a hit in and kill him. That's
Yeah.
exactly what the combat's like here.
Okay. Okay. Good. I have to admit, just from the small portion that I've played, I was really, I don't want to say surprised, but the combat does feel very very simple. I kind of liked that you could like cancel most of your like attack animations with a dodge, just in case you smashed that attack button a bit too much. But And I gotta say, I really wasn't a fan of fighting the haired slaver. That's why I'm going to refer to him from now on. Fighting the haired slaver, like I basically dodged every single one of his attacks, but then it would constantly, about 5 times it went to like the pre-animated sequence where it was like he was punching me in the face, knocking me down, and then he'd be like, "Get up!" And man, I hate it when games do that. It's like I just dodged perfectly like 5 times in a row, and it's like you wanted to do the canned animation to beat my ass in. And that happened to Senua multiple times in just the intro section. I get that she's supposed to be like tired or whatever, but I don't know. It kind of to me felt like we had Senua sort of flexing like superior skills and then getting slapped around because there's a big strong man regardless, you know? And I was like, come on, man. She was dodging, she was dipping and weaving, but what can you do? I like the idea that the mirror will actually speed those things up, if nothing else. Eh?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's ultimately what it is, right? Like, because there aren't really like boss fights exactly in this game, so it's all just like random mobs. So when you do have to fight like 12 of them back to back, having the mirror there to speed that up is nice.
Yeah.
But I'm also like I'm not sure like what the whole story reason behind the mirror is that like she hallucinates her home village and then she has the mirror. And then like they just don't really bring it up or use it outside of combat either.
Okay.
There's also
They.
an issue with the with the speeding up the combat that we were saying. The like as I was doing some benchmarks, I had to go through multiple combat encounters like multiple
Sure.
times consecutively. So every time I was trying to improve my own skills and get through the fights as fast as possible.
Sure.
But it feels like they are specifically like paced to be like 3-minute fight sequences or something like that at a time. So I don't think it even matters if you're really skillful and use the mirror back to back to get to like one hit kill people, because the fights are, it feels like they're predestined, like pre-scripted. It's going to be like a 2-minute fight, and then it's a very scripted experience, right, the entire game. So they really want you to feel certain things at certain times, and they don't want to deviate from that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean like the other thing is that like some enemies like even if you like without the mirror, of course, like if you do everything perfectly and dodge all of their attacks and attack in the moments where you're supposed to have an opening, if the game isn't really happy with you finishing that fight right then and there, it will just have the character just randomly dodge, which they don't do at any other time. So like if you're like it does feel a lot like, this is the 3-minute fight sequence. So play for 3 minutes, regardless of how good you are or how bad you are. And like I tried all 3 of the difficulties, which is just like easy, balanced, and um pro or whatever it's called. I can't even remember what the difficult one is called. And it felt like there was essentially no difference there because it is so easy to dodge enemy attacks that nothing changes, and it's all scripted to like kind of last the same amount of time regardless. So I don't know. If it was like, if you get hit by something then it's a one shot kill, then like maybe that might be challenge. But like as it was, like getting hit twice in a row is basically never gonna happen. Um so
I
yeah.
read somewhere that this game also was supposed to have a like that permadeath kind of mechanic from the first one. Like in the first game, if you died a lot, you would start to see like this curse taking over Senua, like visually. And then like if you died a lot, after a point, there would be a permadeath. I didn't die much, but even the times I died, I didn't notice anything like that. Like so, I don't think there is a mechanic, or if there is, it's not shown properly.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know. There's like
Okay.
in the story stuff, like there's like small inconsistencies as well that are like a little bit frustrating for me. Like when you meet Astra for the first time, she just like knows your name. Like it's never spoken to her. And she's like, well, let's hear what Senua has to say. It's like, well, this is the first time I'm meeting this lady. She just knows my name right from the get-go. Um the the hairy slaver, he has like the darkness on his arm, and then just at some point he doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
And they don't really address that all that much. I guess it's because he's like kind of changed his ways and decided that he doesn't want to be a slaver anymore. But
Mhm,
it's just like it's kind of a bit like she notices it and is like, "Wow, this dude is cursed. I don't want to
mhm.
really be around him, but he needs to lead me back to their homeland so I can, kill them all or whatever."
Yeah.
But then it just doesn't follow up on that at all.
Okay. All right. I only have two questions left for you. I'm going to ask one at a time. The first one is Hellblade, both in this game and the last game. Obviously, like it's handles mental illness with the Furies and the way they do represent some people having like the some type of schizophrenic disorder. And that can of course happen in like other situations as well. My question is, does the fact that the game muddles like mental health allegories and like mystical slash religious happenings, is that messy? Because it feels messy. Because as you said, there's like the mirror appears and characters just know Senua's name, and every time I'm looking at these things happening, I'm like, is this a case of This is supposed to be like Senua's not possibly in her right mind at the moment? Is that why that's happening, or is it like, oh, there's a mystical, magical world, and we're going through the Norse hells and Midgard or whatever? Like, which part is it? You know, which one does it lean towards?
I think I don't know. It doesn't really like it doesn't have any interaction. Like her mental health just doesn't really get addressed at all. Like it's
Hmm.
not like it's something that is constantly there through the Furies and all of that, and like it kind of hints at like, well, maybe this could just be all inside her head. But then like all of the other characters like see the giants, they see all of the stuff that she does, and like it kind of feels like it's abandoned the whole premise of like, is this some sort of like mental breakdown that she's experiencing where she's
Hmm.
hallucinating these things, or is it mythology? Because we know from all of these other characters seeing and reacting to these things that yeah, it's mythology.
Yeah.
So it's like they just don't really, I don't know. I feel like there just isn't any desire to engage with that aspect of the game beyond just like a few moments where Senua is like sort of grappling with something internally.
Yeah. Okay. Do you feel the same way, Raoul?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there are moments where, like, the game doesn't really commit to either of the ideas, whether it's supposed to be this grand mythology or if it's supposed to be a exploration of her psyche. Because there are moments where, like, in combat or even like Senwa is walking with other people, but then she's pulled into this like other dimension in her mind or something.
Hmm.
But then sometimes other characters also comment on that. Sometimes other characters are completely absent, so it's hard to tell, okay, if this is this really happening in just her mind, is
Hmm.
this just supposed to be like is this some breakdown, is this some like mythological thing, or is this just cool for the sake of being cool because it looks good on the screen?
Yeah. 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 I get. Okay. So what do you think? Do you think like do you think like these like supernatural elements assist the game, or is it just happening?
They assist like as a from a presentation standpoint, sure. I mean,
Sure.
it looks great, obviously, and I'm sure there is some message in there, but that I'm not seeing. That's possible, obviously, but it's a problem with the structure of the game as well. Is that in that like I'm a big Assassin's Creed fan, right? And the last main Assassin's Creed was based on Vikings, Valhalla, and one of the lead writers of Valhalla, Darby McDevitt, he was talking about how when people were complaining that that game is so long, there's so many side stories and quests. He
Hmm.
was talking about how in Viking, like Norse mythology, a lot of stories are not as linear. There's always like these twists and turns and like different rivers connecting into one thing. So if you look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla from that perspective, it makes sense. It's not just one big story; it's like five stories connecting together.
Sure.
This game also does something. It feels like it's doing something similar. Like when you watch, say, something like The Northman, it's not like it's a grand story, but it's told in these small, like moment to moment, like beats. And here, the entire game is structured around these three main events, which are beating these three main giants. But it took me till I got to the third giant to realize, oh, that's the whole structure. Like that's the main thing of the game.
Mm-hmm.
In other games, like another game like God of War Ragnarok, which is also based on Norse mythology, right? Ragnarok also is a pretty big game, and in the main story, there are moments where you feel like, okay, where is this going? There are moments where Kratos will suddenly see, okay, you know what? Let me just help these people and get this thing sorted, which
Mm-hmm.
apparently doesn't seem to have much to do with the main story, but somehow it connects back. So when you look back on God of War, you see all those small side stories and you realize, oh yeah, they all speak to each other. That can't be said about this game. It doesn't here. It really feels like, yeah, these are just side stories happening. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel the gravitas of these events towards the conclusion.
Sure, sure. It does look gorgeous though, eh? Those waves in that intro. I was like, oh, that's a nice wave. That's a nice looking wave. Okay. We should finish just by saying, first of all, I can't remember a single story from Ass Creed Valhalla. Maybe they should have stuck with one. And also, my final question for the day is: do you recommend playing this game, Ollie?
Oh, it's such a difficult question to answer. I think if you are invested in Senua and her story, then like it's worth playing just to see, more of that character. Because
Mm-hmm.
she is an interesting character. And even though they don't do all that much with it, she is, a kind of a unique character in video games. So, if you really like her as a character, definitely like play it.
Sure.
I think if you played through the first game and you're like, okay, that was a nice little self-contained story, and don't feel the desire to go on, then don't, because it's not worth all of it. Because
Okay.
I said it in my review that there's one fantastic moment in the game, and that's the fighting off against the first giant, um, where it's this big audio visual treat that syncs with the gameplay, and it's an absolutely gorgeous moment, and it's a very very good combination of gameplay and visuals. And then it does the same thing an hour later with the next one, and it does it worse. And then an hour and a half later it does the same thing with the third one, and it does it worse. So I feel like even if you are going to play it, you could play up to the end of the first giant sequence and then just stop playing, and you would get
Mm-hmm.
exactly as much out of it. Because beyond that, you're just treading the same water. So yeah, I mean, if you're really, really invested in Senua, play it. Otherwise, just don't bother.
Sure. Raul, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I think there's two answers to this. One is about managing your expectations going into it. Don't think
Okay.
of it as that triple A, quadruple A, whatever you want to call it, kind of experience. It's more like the Order 1886. I saw someone compare that on Twitter.
Yeah, I think that
Uh,
was John Linneman, wasn't it?
yeah, or John Lennon, yeah. So it really is like that. So if you go into it with that expectation, and also Xbox has indirectly set that expectation with the pricing and saying stuff like, oh, the price doesn't matter, it's on Game Pass anyway, it's a 6 hour game, just play it over the weekend.
Yeah.
Which I also take an issue with, because and this is a local issue with the regional pricing in India. It's more expensive than what games used to be in the PS4 era,
Mm-hmm.
when they were $60.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not worth the money for me or people here. So the only way I would recommend playing it is through Game Pass.
Yeah.
And so there is a discussion to be had about Game Pass as well, about enabling these quote unquote smaller experiences,
Mm-hmm.
which are more experimental. But that doesn't mean that everything they're doing, like with Hellblade 2, is like justifiable if
Okay.
you look at it as a standalone purchase.
All right. Well, I think that's everything. Will I continue playing it? I don't know. I feel like you might have put me off, but at the same time, I want to see the giant intro. What am I going to say? Okay, Ollie, where can we read your review?
You can read my review on Men's Journal, which is mensjournal.com/video games.
Fantastic. Raoul, where's yours?
My review is on video games at Sports Illustrated. You can read it at videogames.si.com. And please read the reviews, both mine and Ollie's, and don't fix it on the scores. Thank you.
That's right. Right. Thank you very much, both. I will consider Hellblade in my future. That's the best I can give it.